as I had mentioned earlier, my name is Patty Ruland. I am with Engage by Sell. I've been with the organization for about, coming up on 7 years or so. And one of the great things I get to do is have conversations with our clients and share stories about how our mobile technology platform has been useful in their organization. So today I'm thrilled to be joined by Twyla Beth Lambert from Mary Kay. And we're going to talk a little bit about, what's been going on, how things have been affecting Mary Kay and their communications with their employees since COVID and so forth. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide, Molly. I'm going to cover a little bit about Engage by Sell, and then we'll jump into it. Like I said, this is really geared towards sharing Twyla Beth's story. So it's not really a sales-heavy presentation. It's more sharing an experience. I can answer some questions on the actual platform towards the end, and if you're interested in more information, we'll collect your information and we'll have somebody reach out to you. But a little bit about Engage by Sell. We are a mobile technology platform. We are cloud-based. So the biggest benefit of that is our platform doesn't require any downloading for your user. Quick, simple, fast, and easy. We've been around for about 14 years. We have about 4,000 clients in 10 countries. And we work primarily with HR departments. We work with many of the workforce development agencies. We also have a division that works with nonprofits, cultural venues, museums, all types of associations. So with that being said, I am going to, again, introduce you to Twyla Beth. And why don't you tell us a little bit about what you do at Mary Kay and a little bit about your history and background.
All right. I've been with Mary Kay for several years, and like 12 or 13 years. I am in employee communications, and I've been in this department in essentially the same role that whole time, which is really weird in today's world. But the role itself kept evolving. And so I got to keep growing. So I've been very happy. It's still evolving this year even. I do employee communications. So we are focused on global employee communications. Mary Kay is in 35 plus markets around the world. So we have employee communications, which is separate from our independent beauty consultant communications. That's a whole nother department. So I'm not talking to your Mary Kay lady. I'm talking to the employees at the offices, in the manufacturing facility, in the distribution centers, and our international offices as well. So those are my primary audience. I tend to focus on communication campaigns, particularly around change. If we have a new system rolling out, if we have a new big process that affects employees at large, I'm typically involved in that. And then we also have our department's initiatives to engage employees in the culture of Mary Kay and keeping that company culture alive and that legacy continuing and true to what it was designed to be, what Mary Kay Ash designed it to be, as well as being engaged and informed about company business. How do you do your job? What are the things that you need to do your job? And why do you care? And so those are the things that our department is really involved in. And then I take ownership of certain ones. Yeah.
I've actually been involved with Mary Kay. You guys have been a client of mine for a while, and we've worked with various different departments. I know we worked with some of your leadership team for they used our platform for some of their leadership conferences and things like that. But you and I first connected a couple of years back for a pilot program for global communication. And we had some great things happen from that. We've had some not so great things happen from that, but it was a great learning.
I would call them learnings. They were still great. They were just learnings, right?
Exactly. So why don't you give us a little bit about how you originally came to us and what you were looking for?
Okay. Originally, we were looking for an extra channel that could put Mary Kay in your hand. I was looking for my phone, but the dog is sitting on it. In the palm of your hand to engage you, particularly in the culture and the emotional content that we needed to get across. It was also going to be great if we had something really timely that we needed to communicate to people. But mostly it was about a culture moment. And I don't know about your company, but a lot of companies over the last few years, particularly older companies that are getting further away from their foundings, struggle with culture and creating the right balance of who we are and getting that DNA as you have new people coming in. So we were at that point where we wanted to make an impact. We were hoping to get a global solution, as she said. So we piloted in 5 countries, and we did learn some things. We learned that some countries themselves had rules that made it really hard for us to connect through text. We learned that some other countries, people in that country don't use text. They use other chat methods, other instant messaging tools, and text was not going to reach them. So, but what we did also learn was that in the US, text was very effective. It's very efficient. People like it. It's simple to either look at or scroll past. And so that was very handy, and pickup was good. So we said, great, then let's focus on the US and a strategy to build this. So we started this program with the intent to have a once a month non-essential communication. We were going to carry some fun, exclusive content, some video content. We were going to do some sort of splash ads for content that we wanted you to go on the Inside NK on our intranet and look at. There were things that we were not going to tell you over text, like company financials. We're a privately held company. We're not going to do that. But we would tell you, hey, the financials are out. You should go over there where you're used to seeing them, and they're there now. So we would do things like that, and we planned to do that once a month. So we did for a while, and that worked really great. And we saw some uptake. We saw it was one of the decisions that we made as a company is that we're only going to use this service as an opt-in. We will not automatically enroll all employees.
Right.
And so
that's something that can be done with our service. You can upload a
right,
list.
you can. The service would allow us to automatically enroll all employees, but as a company, based on our company culture, we opted to not do that. And so instead, we just would promote the heck out of this. It's a benefit, but when it was only nice to have extra things, opt-in was a little slow, but not bad, but a little bit slow. And then the pandemic. And then the pandemic hit. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Kind of put you as a global organization and, the rest of the country, the rest of the world, kind of back on their heels saying, okay, how do we change? How do we pivot? How do we get to a place where we can effectively work with our remote workers or work from home people who have never worked from home and so forth?
Right.
So you went into your back pocket and dug out this tool you have.
I did. So I was put on a task force with mostly technology people. And the task force's role was to figure out how to identify the technology. So, like everybody, we had people who were used to working in offices who couldn't come in anymore.
Right.
But how do we keep the business going? So we have these independent beauty consultants that still need to be able to feed their family, and their business could be online. You didn't have to meet up. How do we help them have their business so they can still feed their families? How do we keep our business afloat and yet nobody can go in the office? And so very quickly, because China had to do it first, just overnight, China shut down, right? Surprise, woo. And they adapted very quickly and broke ground. But then when they shut down, that was a cue that this task force started up to how are we going to get the rest of Europe, as Europe started dropping like dominoes. And we know the US is going to follow, and all these places are going to follow. How do we get them ready? So interestingly, we have around 5,000 employees worldwide. Most of those people don't have laptops. Most of those people are desk employees. Then we have people working in manufacturing here in the US and China. And we have people working in distribution centers in various places around the world that are packing the products into boxes and shipping them out to her. That's what we call the independent beauty consultant, shipping them out to her wherever she is. And so we knew that in order to keep the business running, those manufacturing people were going to be essential workers, particularly once we started making products that were truly essential for pandemic times. And so we need to be able to communicate with them, but they don't have desktops or laptops. They do have phones, most of them. They're not company phones, but they had personal phones. But they needed to know information, like should they come to work?
Right.
What are the new rules for coming to work? What's changed? What do you need to know about your team? What do you need to know about if you've been exposed? All of those things that you have to tell people. And then we had all of those office workers all over the place who were suddenly working from home. I was one of the lucky ones. I already had a laptop because I kind of work 24/7 whenever they need communications. But most people didn't. What are we going to do with these people? So we had people who maybe had a company phone, or maybe they had a personal phone, or maybe they had a personal laptop, or they had a tablet. And could we get them at least connected to communications so they could get emails and the information, even if they couldn't do their regular job? Could they at least be informed about that? How do we connect with them and communicate with them? And our intranet, everybody was like, well, you got to post this on the intranet. And I was like, I have a problem. Nobody can get to the intranet because we had a significant limitation about who had VPN access inside the firewall. And so everybody else who was outside the firewall and didn't have Citrix or VPN couldn't get to all of this information they were wanting me to disperse. And that was like, we're going to have to go outside. I know it makes IST and InfoSec really nervous, but we're going to have to go outside the firewall to communicate these things. And it will be okay because we're not selling the company's secrets out there. We're telling them how to get their mail, which will be secure. We're going to tell them how to get their mail securely. We're going to tell them, we're going to help country leaders figure out how to get their country ready before the country's mandated to shut down. So we've got to figure out a way. And I was like, I have a way. You're just going to need to be okay with it. And so where we had been using Engage by Cell for this once a month little fluffy thing, it became absolutely vital to our ability to communicate with country leaders, HR, and employees at large around the world.
Absolutely.
And then you're like, but wait, you said it didn't work for outside of the US. I said the texting part didn't work, but access to what I was linking to in the text works everywhere. And so once we were able to get those country leaders to have access to toolboxes, I created toolkits that we hosted on, we call it Spotlight, that we're putting a spotlight on the information that you need to know.
Right. And Molly, maybe do you want to throw up a couple of the slides of the Spotlight, just so you can all see what we're
I think one of them is a picture, kind of the toolkit page, the leader toolkit. Once we got that out to the leaders, that helped them, that gave them what they needed to know to get their employees at least on email. And in some of our markets, if you didn't have VPN, that was the only company tool you had for a while was email. And so that little toolkit, if you scrolled down, it had all kinds of links and information and PDFs and Word files that they could use to get their company ready to have business continuity. And so, so we began getting them ready and deciding, okay, what we need to do is whatever we would normally put on Inside MK on this intranet, we need to replicate it on Spotlight, on Engage by Cell, to make that available. So this was working remotely, stress and anxiety management. You know, a few weeks into the pandemic, when everybody's working from home, everybody was freaking out. Your kids are there all the time. You're an introvert and your office was quiet, but now your whole family is there all the time, 24/7. all of the things. There was another one we wanted do the one with the baby on the headline. We wanted people to start getting comfortable. So Mary Kay has a business culture, business attire kind of dress code. And we needed people to know that we, as a company, were okay with you being in an environment that was less than perfect, that was less than businessy. So show us your pets. Normally I have a dog that's up here wanting to be in the meeting.
I love that because, you were giving them vital information, but you were still adding a little bit of engagement, when we first started COVID, it was a scary time.
Right.
I know we all like to forget about it, but to have a little distraction where you could show off your desk or your kitchen table, or
yes, we got so many fun pictures.
Their child coworkers and their pets that are running in and out of the room and barking and so forth. So it gave
so we wanted to make them feel informed, connected, safe, and equipped to do whatever they needed to do. And so that's how we used Spotlight to accomplish those things. And so another couple of them show different headlines, those little bar graphics across. So that's one of our stories. That's like a regular news story. We had a lot of really heavy, protecting yourself from COVID, what benefits are changing because of COVID. And then we had that Spain story it was just a fun news story that for a long time, we didn't have very much regular news like that. It took us a while to kind of get back to, let's have just some good perky news about things we're doing. But we created this that COVID hub. There's the COVID hub. We created that your one spot. In fact, I have to go update that today. Another message went out. That's all your information about what you need. And that is US specific about processes and protocols and contact information in the US around COVID. And then we have a front page. So the one that has several and the guy talking in a video, that one. So this is kind of what our front page, our fake intranet looks like, so that every Friday we moved it. We normally started at the beginning of the week, but during COVID, we would have all of these WebM communications about COVID that would go out as emails. And so on Friday, we would kind of do a wrap up so that nobody missed anything vital from the week. And then here's your news stories. So we created this very engaging, very visually appetizing way to replicate our intranet, which is visually appealing. This is actually more visually appealing. So every story gets one of these headline graphics that tells you what the story is about. All looks a little bit different. Then you click through one of those and it takes you off to a standalone story like that Spain one. And some of them have just news, some of them have videos, some of them have PDFs, resources you could use. And then some of them at the top of that other one was a video that just plays live right there. You can click play on it and watch. If you back up one, there. So there is Ryan Rogers, Mary Kay Ash's grandson, talking to employees in a video. So that was another thing that we decided before, pre-pandemic, in the days before. We had once a month a news show that we created that ran on televisions in the building, and we ran it on the intranet. It was like a 20-minute news show of all these stories kind of stuck together. And once we got to this point, most of those, that couldn't happen because we couldn't get to the to the studio to film. People weren't there. The news that we normally would have shared didn't matter anymore in the moment. So what were we going to do? And we figured, because it was important to us and we kind of felt around and it was important to others, they really wanted to hear from the leaders. And so once a week, we posted a video from one of our executives, and all of them took turns and they filmed it themselves at home with their cell phone and sent it to our video guy, and he slapped a little bookends around it and we could plop that up. And it was very low tech. It was very fast turnaround, very do it yourself. They got very comfortable. And I talked about that culture of how we dress. They got comfortable with that. They would do that with no tie or in a golf shirt or in Mary Kay swag, some kind of shirt that had Mary Kay logo on it. And they got
Right.
very comfortable. So there's Ryan with no tie. That was kind of a big deal. It may seem silly, but it's that culture that we're helping you get comfortable with. Our leaders are getting comfortable with. Pepe, our leader for Latin America, uh, he's all fuzzy now. He grew his beard out and everything. It's very different. He was all very clean shaven and buttoned up in tie. And I love him. He's a great storyteller, but he was very businessy. And now he is fuzzy. He's adorable. And I love that we get to show that they're people too, and
Right.
you can be your pandemic self, and that's okay because we're still getting things done.
Absolutely. You mentioned earlier, and I just want to kind of relay back to it, about the platform, texting not necessarily working in all countries globally,
Right.
but you can access the platform.
Yes. Oh, sorry. Yes. So each week we would send.
Built in, we have QR codes, so
Yep.
there's different ways to disseminate that. So how did you do that internationally?
So we already sent once a week. We call it the weekly. We would send a roundup of news. It's like a newsletter with annotated links to different stories, couple of pictures, and we already did that. And normally we link to the intranet, and we began linking out to Engage by Cell instead. And so each one of those stories would link to the individual story. At the top of the page, we link to that main kind of homepage where you could see everything that's new, and then we would leave a week's worth of old news up there too that you could scroll through if you wanted that wasn't in the email. So that's how we did that internationally, and we would have an international version and a US version of that email.
And I want to ask you, and Krista actually mentioned it in the chat window. So, I mean, you have 5,000 employees, not to mention, you know, the consultants and so forth. And I'm sure you have a huge IT department and a huge security department and a marketing department and so forth. Yet you're the one who does this. You're the one who puts everything on the platform. So why don't you talk about how difficult, challenging, easy, piece of cake? You know, I don't know what your technical coding skills are or IT background is, but why don't you kind of share a little bit about that process?
Okay. So the user interface for Engage by Cell is really easy to use. I'll tell you, it's not fancy. It's not beautiful like you might see in some other places, but it's super easy to use. I do actually have some technical skills. I can code raw HTML if I really have to. And I go in sometimes and I correct it if something's going wonky. But I don't really need that skill because it's WYSIWYG. I want a picture here, so I grab the picture icon and I drag it down to where I want the picture to go. And doing that opens up a deal that says, where's the picture? And I go find the picture, just like you're going to add a picture to anything else, and boom, the picture shows up. So it's really easy. I want to add text. Okay, I'm going to add my text block thing. I drag that down into where I want it to be and open a WYSIWYG text box deal that just looks a lot like Word, where you can type it in and format it. I can copy and paste from something else. It's super easy to use. It's pretty fast. So one of the things early on, I said we duplicated information. So we were still posting things on the intranet for the handful of people who had VPN or were in the building for whatever reason that would still go there. And then we had this for everything. So we were posting everything twice. And at first I was like, are you serious? Can't we just tell people not to use the internet for a while? I'm tired of posting. But it was really easy.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's kind of fast forward to now and coming out of, I know you, the majority are still work from home. What applications for Engage by Cell do you see in the future? I mean, obviously the people in security and InfoSec and all that kind of stuff are a little more at ease now with people having access to certain information that's not behind the firewall.
Right.
How has this kind of helped you, or where do you think, what's kind of the pathway once things return to somewhat normal?
Well, you know, I don't think we'll ever get back to the pre-COVID normal. I think we're coming to grips with the fact that the workforce is going to look different. where we work is going to look different. When we work, that was the other thing that we got accustomed to. Everybody was used to sort of the 8 to 5-ish, with maybe a little wiggle room. And now we've got people that they're like, my kids are all up in my business from 3 to 5. And so, or, from 10 to 12, I've got to be helping them do school. So I can't really be working then. Don't schedule meetings for me then. So we've got people working really wonky schedules, and we got okay with that. We've learned a lot about what we can get okay with and still get stuff done.
Right.
And so that's been really great to learn. We talked about needing an agile workforce, and we've learned that we actually have an agile workforce when they had the freedom to be agile, when they had that,
and when they have
the
right
environment, right? When they have the tools that they need, and they have that flexibility and support that they need to do that, they get stuff done, and they just plow through and make things happen, and they partner. So we're partnering in different ways. So how is Engage by Cell going to play into that? I think originally I expected that there would be an endpoint and we would go back to once a month, fluffy news. I don't think that's probably going to happen. I think this will stay a piece of our core communication strategy going forward, because we're going to continue to have a more distributed workforce than we did before. We have since fixed that VPN access issue. We got the licensing issue resolved so that everybody has VPN access. So that's not a problem, but we're used to convenience. We like having it in our hands. I was in a meeting this morning, actually, where we needed to get some people some some how-to information, some videos, some quick guides, and they needed it. They kept saying, well, we want them to be able to work on the app. And I said, but the app is on their phone, but you're talking about posting and how fun it is that they can do that anytime, anywhere, but you're telling them that they have to go on their computer to get the how-to guide. That's that's a disconnect, people. We need to get that how-to guide here. What if we used Engage by Cell for this target audience? So we would create a subgroup for this target audience. Actually, it's probably going to be multiple subgroups for this target audience around this change, and we can get them their change information available in their hand right there where they're going to be using the web app to do the things. So they can just switch screens, slide back and forth between the screens, and do the things right in the moment, instead of having to also have their computer open, which really undermines the message of anytime, anywhere.
Yeah, and that is it. Just in time, just for me, anytime, anywhere. I mean,
right.
We've been promoting mobile technology. Well, at least I said I've been with the company for almost 6.5, 7 years. We see stats about email rates dropping, email open rates dropping.
Right.
Everybody is so familiar with texting, and I don't care what people say, it's no longer generational. My mom's 80, she texts. I wish I never taught her, but I mean, it's something, because of what's gone on the past year, people have adopted technology. You still have your folks that are working from home that either don't have a home computer, or they have one and it's dedicated to their children's, distance learning during the day and stuff like that. So it's really become a factor.
Right.
I wanted to touch upon, so I know you had originally said when you first started doing the Happy Fuzzy Light stuff monthly,
right?
It was a voluntary opt-in, and people were slowly adopting. During pandemic, did you have an uptick in how many people were opting in because they would hear that this was available?
Oh yeah, we tripled our opt-ins. We had nearly the entire U.S. population opted in. Since things have kind of cooled off, we've seen a teensy, like maybe 10, 15 drop, but that may actually be terminations, like people who retired or were at a facility that closed, or department that has changed or whatever. So I think some of that's natural attrition, but even then, 15 people is not a lot. When we talk about that, between when it was super optional and you didn't actually need anything in there to when you needed it to survive, we tripled our opt-in population.
Well, I mean, I think you guys have done a great job during the pandemic of keeping the culture alive, um, keeping your employees feeling comfortable, safe, secure. I mean, there's nothing worse than not knowing. And when it
Right.
starts to go into directions it shouldn't. So you guys were really great at continuing that. Let me just ask you a little bit, and I'm gonna hint or fish for some compliments here.
Okay.
You work with our training team, you work with our customer success team, you've worked with me. How is it to work with Engage My Cell and the people? What do you think about the support?
You guys are so responsive. A wonky thing happened the other day, and I think it might have been user error. That PEBKEC problem exists between keyboard and chair. That may have been the problem, but it was still a problem. And I was like, I need to email. I haven't even talked to him in forever, but I need to email. And I emailed, and I like within 20 minutes, I had a solution. You guys are super responsive. You're creative. If I ask something, I think it may be a time or two I've asked something that you'd never thought about before, and you're like, oh, yeah, let's figure that out. Or you were like, oh, you're misunderstanding what that is. Let me help you understand how that's really going to work and why that's good for you. And I'm like, great. So you guys have been fantastic to work with.
Excellent. I appreciate that. Like I said, I went a little fishing there for that, but no, I'm teasing. I always
Happy to
like
give it.
about, my support team, and I'm a solutions consultant, so I'm in sales. But I mean, with Engage My Cell, you've got such a well-rounded team that really cares about the organizations that we work with, and trying to provide the best possible service. And, COVID has been challenging. And like I said, you guys were, I'll say, lucky that you had something in place that you could go to.
We were very lucky.
During the past 6-8 months or so, we've had people coming to us trying to get caught up, and we've been great in getting people onboarded and stuff like that. I know a lot of organizations that we talk to, and maybe some on the calls, are open or partially open, or have gotten a little band-aid solution. And I asked you this when we talked last week. Were there any other ideas of how you were going to facilitate this if you weren't using the platform?
If I'm really truthful, with the VPN access issue, we were SOL without this.
Yeah.
We had a layer of leaders who could get their email. We had people on laptops with VPN who could get their email. And so we could have cobbled together something where those people, even though it's not really your job, but you're the one who actually has a laptop with VPN, you're now the communications person for your country.
Right.
Good luck with that. We could have done something like that. It would have been awful for them. It would have been really hard for us because communications strategy is a skill that not everybody has. Not all of them in the markets are honestly, not all of them are super comfortable with English. And that's the only language I'm super comfortable with.
Right.
So it would have been a problem. I'm sure we were scrappy. We would have figured something out. But this saved our bacon. It really did.
We're always happy to work with you guys, and we're glad that we were able to be so instrumental in this. What I'm going to do is take a second and see what kind of questions we have here. Looks like for Twyla, was there any pushback from employees on possible data charges from the company texting their personal cell phone? Yeah, we get that a lot. I'll let you answer it, and then I'll give you, kind of our outlook on it, or our perspective.
Well, we had actually done some preliminary, because we had wanted to adopt this before, we had done some preliminary asks about that. And our primary concern was initially were those workers who didn't have any other options. They don't have a computer because they're standing at the manufacturing plant doing the manufacturing things. So are they going to be, we don't know what kind of plans they have. It's not a company phone. So we had thought about that before, and one of our guys at the plant actually did a little an unofficial survey and found they didn't care. They're happy to use their data. So we didn't find that was a big barrier. And in fact, most people had unlimited data already.
Right. And as far as from our perspective and what I hear from organizations that we work with, most people are happy to receive the information. If it's going to set their mind at ease, make their job easier, provide them easier access to resources, they're more than happy to use their phone, their data plan, and so forth. And, you know, in your situation where, you know, they didn't necessarily have access to a VPN, being able to access this information is more important, and it's easier.
It was so easy. Those videos, in fact, pre-pandemic and now post-pandemic, one of our perks, I think, of that is that I can have that video that normally I would have to sit at my desk and watch the executive talk to me for 15 minutes, which is taking me away from my day job, whatever I'm supposed to normally be doing, or my break that I'd really like to go do. But instead, maybe I'm watching a video, which means maybe I'm actually not watching the video. But if it's on your phone, set that bad boy up while you're on the Peloton. Set that bad boy up while you're on your drive, while you're putting your makeup on, whatever it is that you do. You can let that play.
School or soccer practice, or
right, you're waiting in the line, and you can have that playing. So that's great during pandemic, but it's also great post-pandemic that it puts that sort of thing in their hands when they have time to spend on that shouldn't be brain engaged somewhere else.
Right. Looks like we had another question. Can they decide to opt out at any time? And
Absolutely.
You had some fall off, but yes, our platform allows a user to opt out. We also provide, and I should say, everything on our platform has some analytical component to it. We just turned something on your account, I think, where you know, if somebody clicks the link, that's recorded. If they take a survey, that's recorded and goes into our reporting section. Anybody who opts out, there's a report on that. So there is a robust analytical portion to the platform.
Yes. And that was one of the customer support things that you guys really dug into. My phone actually got unsubscribed because I changed phones. It was the worst time, but I had to, you know, we have to replace your phone or whatever. And it was the worst time. And I wasn't getting the messages that I was supposed to be verifying that they went out. And you guys dug and dug to help me figure out what clearinghouse was keeping me from getting those. So anyway, customer support was great. Yes, you can opt out. If you change phones, you may get opted out without knowing. And then you can opt back in.
Or you have to re-opt in.
You have to, and we've had some people say, I'm not getting them anymore. What happened? I was like, did you ever text back stop? Oh, yes, I did. Well, then you're going to need to opt in again. And they did.
Somebody else mentioned, you mentioned QR codes. How do you use them? So each of our pages, as well as the main menu, has its own pre-assigned QR code. So you can post them in office break rooms. You can post it in a flyer, a pamphlet, a sign. You can even email it in an email, and they can scan it with their phone to opt in. And then they can simply bookmark it to their phone. It creates a little icon that looks like just like a regular, like your Facebook app or your Twitter app and so forth. And they could just tap on that to access the resources and the content.
We use those. I haven't used the QR code very much, but one time that we did, and we'll probably do this more, we have TVs that we use kind of like a scrolling billboard. Mm-hmm. And so you can have an ad up to tell people, hey, this story's out there. It's really cool. You're going to want to go read about this. But then they have to remember between seeing it on the television at the elevator bay and getting back to a desk, or when they finally log on to the internet, that they wanted to read that story. Or we can give them a QR code right there on the TV screen that they can scan with their phone and read it while they're walking to their next meeting.
Exactly. Well, I want to thank you for presenting with me today and sharing your story. Like I said, I have been thrilled to work with you guys for the past few years, and I'm excited that we finally got you on one of our sessions.
Yes.
You know, our clients or our prospects that we chat with love to hear stories from our actual clients and different use cases. And, you know, I think what we try to get across is despite the type of industry that you're in, I actually have a gal that I spoke with earlier today. She's with a trucking organization. Now, trucking and Mary Kay Cosmetics couldn't be further apart, but there's value in mobile technology for all types of organizations. So we love when we can have someone like yourself share their story, their experiences, and so forth.
I was talking to some authors. My side hustle, we talked before the meeting about having a side hustle. My side hustle is that I edit books. So I know a lot of authors, and they're always looking for I should do a newsletter. I don't want to do a newsletter. I was like, don't do a newsletter. Do this.
Absolutely.
Get it in people's phones. They don't want a newsletter.
Yeah. And again, it goes back to the people are not checking email. I mean, you know, I have a position where I have to check my company email, and I do that religiously every, 6 seconds or so. But my personal email, like maybe once a week. There's not really much exciting in there or anything that I deem important. If it's something important, somebody's going to text me. So anyway, again, I want to thank everybody who joined us today. I want to thank Twyla Beth for taking time out of her schedule to share her stories. If anybody would like to receive additional information about our platform, feel free to enter your name and email address in the chat window. We've also recorded this presentation. They'll edit it and do a transcript of the conversation, and that will probably be emailed out to you sometime tomorrow. So again, from myself, the team at Engage by Sal, thanks Molly and Krista in the background, and Twyla Beth from Mary Kay, we appreciate you joining us today. And
welcome.
You have a great afternoon.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.